everybody, welcome to Recovery Lab TV. My name is Chris, I'm your coach and sports therapist, and welcome to another video. This video is all about me being halfway into my Ironman journey this year. Although race-wise it's not halfway. I've done 3 and I've got 4 to go. It's thereabouts. The next one being Ireland, and this race format is going to be first of a kind for me. It is going to be the 70.3 on Saturday, the 19th of August, and it is going to be the full Ironman on the Sunday, the 20th of August. Now, for those who don't know, this year I am going to be the first person to complete all 7 of the UK and Irish Ironman events. That includes 4 70.3s and 3 full Ironman distance races. Now, this is a goal that I've kind of come up with, if you will, and it's all in aid of a mental health charity, helping them help others effectively. This mental health charity is called Rock to Recovery, for those who don't know and are new to the channel. It's a charity that specialises in helping the armed forces and emergency services personnel, so all of the 999 community. Now, so far this year I have completed Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire, Ironman Bolton, which is a full Ironman, or Ironman UK should I say, and Ironman 70.3 Swansea. Completed that in the last couple of weeks. Now, so far I just wanted to give you a rundown on how things have gone, where I'm at kind of training wise, how I've been managing the training load. For those who are interested, by all means, if you have any questions that I don't answer in this video, by all means chuck them in the comment section and I will do more videos, and if there's a large volume. However, I will answer each and every one of you in the comment section as best as I possibly can. Now, for me, it's the first time I've kind of ever done this many races in a season, mostly because of the finances of it. It's incredibly expensive, and to be honest, I just don't have the money. This year is a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and it's kind of one of those things that it's kind of like a do-or-die situation. It's either get it all done now, or there is no do-over, if you will. Now, for me, I've always been a massive Ironman fan, an Ironman supporter, if you will. I absolutely love the brand. I love what it kind of stands for in regards to allowing people and helping people to achieve what seems impossible, and their mantra that anything is possible. Now, what got me into Ironman myself was literally seeing 2 average people, complete Ironman Wales way back when, and it inspired me to be more, do more. It inspired me to get into the sport. It inspired me to look into coaching people into the sport, and wanting to go down this journey that I've kind of gone down over the last several years. This year, with my first race being Ironman 70.3 Staffordshire, it was the second time I was in Staffordshire. I went down there before and I helped by volunteering and helped Ironman on their run course way back when, a few years back, and it was the first time I'd ever done that course itself. I found it really, really interesting. I really like Staffordshire. I think the local area is really nice. I think the course is really well, and it was completely kind of new to me, if you will. From a race standpoint, I think the national park on the bike route was absolutely beautiful. I got to see some deer on the bike course, which was phenomenal. Something out of a kind of a Disney movie, if you will, that I found really, really kind of inspiring, and something I've been doing over since the pandemic, really kind of tapping into my own mindset a little bit more, if you will, is searching for the beauty in each situation. So regardless of how tough it is, it's kind of focusing on the beauty of a situation. So if it's a bad day, looking for the kind of the sun peering through the clouds, kind of moments. Those, if it's raining and so on and so forth, looking for the kind of the crazy in it, so you can laugh about the situation. It's those kind of situations where I've kind of really focused in the past several years since the pandemic. So for me, I kind of really had several moments on that course where I was able to do that, and that bike course was definitely one of them. Going through that national park. Now, for me, I think that course is really well suited. It's a lake swim, which didn't bother me at all. I'm a sea swimmer. I absolutely love swimming in the sea, and the course itself is similar to if you live locally in Cardiff. You've got this little loop that goes out to Ogmore, back through Cowbridge and back to Cardiff. It's kind of rolling hills, if you will, some fairly like flat bits, but some steep climbs as well. But generally it's rolling, especially through kind of Cowbridge back to top of Cardiff. Now I've cycled that a million times, as has kind of a million other triathletes and cyclists around Cardiff. They all know that loop very well. It's kind of the route if you're kind of training for an Ironman, if you will. So the course was very similar to that. Lots of rolling hills, lots of fast sections, a few tasty climbs, but nothing kind of too crazy, if you will. Now, I really enjoyed that bike course. It went on to the run. The run happened to be on one of the hottest days this year so far. That really affected me in the sense of wearing the vest. I was overheating quite a lot. And I kind of came up with this strategy that I've done in ultras, where I kind of run for 3 minutes, walk for 2. This allowed me to kind of pretty much bring this kind of strategy into play that allowed me to focus on, instead of how much I was overheating, if you will, and whether I was in pain or not in pain or discomfort, or whether I was finding it tough, it allowed me to use my Garmin. It allowed me to literally run for this amount of time, and then literally on a countdown, focus on my watch and then say, right, you're walking for the next 2 minutes. Now, what I was doing was, by doing that, my heart rate was going right up to the 180s because of wearing this kind of chest plate, this weighted vest, and the fact that it was black. I was wearing black at the time. I was cooking, you know. What it allowed me to do was literally add in to the mix where my heart rate was elevating on the run up to about 180. The moment that was happening, I was kind of getting into that kind of 3 minute pace, where I was kind of averaging a zone 2. Now I was always, my race strategy was always to kind of swim at a kind of a 7 out of 10 pace, cycle as fast as I feel. So when I'm on the bike, I'm looking at my heart rate, I'm looking at my power output, and I'm looking at my pace. What I'm trying to do is navigate my heart rate within a zone 2 to zone 3 pace, kind of heart rate. The power output I'm trying to push as best as I can in relation to it not taxing me too much versus my actual overall speed, to try and get a good average. Now, I averaged, I think it was 31.7 kilometers for that race, and that was the fastest I'd ever kind of done a 70.3 at that distance on a race day, for me, because of having a couple of years off for the pandemic, you know. So that was my best ever ride. Swim, I think I did it in about 38 minutes, which is neither fast or slow for me. It's kind of like a nice gentle-ish pace for me, without kind of sounding too arrogant, if you will. But I kind of wanted to go out at kind of a 7 out of 10 effort where I'm not really pushing myself to kind of racing, but I'm also then kind of not going super easy. So it's kind of settling in that pace, getting myself going, and then kind of really dialing in on the bike. The bike I felt really good because of the nature of the course, and then the run, it was kind of all about reducing that fatigue later on. So I had a good amount of recovery going into Ironman UK in Bolton. For Bolton, it was a very different race. We had total opposite in kind of weather, if you will. For those who raced it will know. Let me know how you found it in the comment section. And for those who were there will also know the bike was incredibly windy. It's a similar kind of layup and setup, if you will, in regards to courses. The swimmers in a lake. You've got two separate transitions, which I must say I'm not really a big fan of. It's a lot of work and a lot of effort. Whereas kind of somewhere like Ironman Wales, for example, the transition is in the same spot, so it's incredibly easy to just put everything there. You've got one place to go to. The kind of swim in Staffordshire and Bolton, it's like what it took me roughly around 37 minutes to get to in the car the day before, to dump all my stuff there, and my kind of bike stuff, and my T1 kind of bag, which just adds into the pre-race nonsense, if you will. And for those who've done Ironman will know, setting up your bags is a bit of a palaver, especially when you're kind of putting in two different locations very far away from each other, and you're making sure that you've got all your stuff, and triple checking, quadruple checking, just to make sure that everything's in the bags, in the car, heading over there, and so on. Now, for me, when I was in Ironman Bolton, it felt incredibly weird. The last time I was there, I was supporting one of my athletes, and the time I was there before, back in 2019, I was actually racing. Now, typically when I race, I make it a family affair. I bring my kids. I book my kids into the Iron Kids races. They get to feel like absolute champions. The day before, they get to have a bit of fun. I get to go along and support them, or race with them, or run and hold their hands. And I get to celebrate them coming across the finish line. They get to feel like an absolute rock star. I get them up on the podium, we take photos, we have a really good time. This time felt incredibly weird for me. It felt very transactional, if you will, because I can't afford to bring my family to all of these races, naturally, because of the cost, and the cost of the races, the cost of accommodations and travel and all the rest of it, plus my partner can't afford to take time off all the time. It's something I already knew. It's something I kind of was very aware of going into this season, that it's going to be more of my job, and more of a kind of a job opportunity as a coach, in the sense of getting more exposure and put myself out there in regards to this challenge. But it's also something that kind of has been hard for me, in the sense that I kind of do enjoy having my family there and supporting me, and I'm feeling like it's a bit more of a weekend, although I'm very aware of how long it is for them, and the sacrifice that they have to make. It does make racing for me a lot nicer, and I don't know how many of you kind of feel the same way, whether you are kind of much more, it's your thing and you go to the race and you literally race it with your mates, and you do your own thing and so on and so forth, which I totally get. It certainly felt like that in kind of Ironman Swansea. A lot of my clients were there, so it felt very cool in the sense of kind of much more racing with friends, and kind of having some food with them the day before, and setting myself up that way. But then it also feels incredibly nice to kind of have your family there, your supporters there, and people cheering you on as well, Go back to Bolton. The bike ride was incredible. You know, probably the toughest Ironman bike ride I've ever done. It had a 35% DNF rating on that course that day, which was back in 2019 when they changed the course. It kind of went from 8% to 18%. And then because they changed the course again, ready for last year, I can't remember exactly the failure rate on that, but like with the hills, because it's a very hilly course, it's 3 loops on this hilly course, plus like a tail end to from the swim. The kind of only section, if you will, you've got a downhill section this side and then a very flat kind of going through the town, which generally you pick up your pace on this kind of L shape, and then this section all here is kind of incredibly hilly, climbs all the way, big elevations, and so on. Now, what the elevation is advertised online is very different to the actual overall elevation. It's about 3,000 meters, and I think it's advertised as about 2.5, maybe just under online. So it's a big difference, and I think that caught a lot of people out on the bike ride, because it's the first time I've ever seen people physically getting off their bikes, calling it a day. They literally had enough. Like, you know, it was a headwind all the way. On the first loop, I came down the biggest hill going back into town, pushing about 77 kilometers an hour. The second time I came down, it was about 40 kilometers an hour, and this was like great bike handling skills, but the bike was all over the place. Very easy to kind of make a mistake and very easy to come off and hurt yourself. Now, without blowing smoke out my arse, I have good bike handling skills. I've spent my entire life on bikes. I used to ride BMXs, I used to ride mountain bikes, so the bike handling skills for myself is I'm quite confident, especially going downhill. Now, that being said, it put the fear of God in you when your bike is skidding across the road, because like up in the moors, for example, the wind physically moved me across the road towards the parked cars, and it takes all the wind out your sail. I was pushing out just under 300 watts, and at that point in time I was doing 13 kilometers an hour into a headwind, and it just felt like you were going uphill all day. Now, my strategy for that race was very different compared to Staffordshire. The reason being is because this year I haven't had the chance to do many long bike rides. So it was since Ironman Wales last September, it was actually my first 100-mile bike ride. Now, for those who do Ironman and do training, it's crazy. I normally like to get a few 100-mile rides in before. The more the merrier, to be honest, because it builds confidence and it builds overall fitness. Now, this year's been very different to my usual build-up in the sense that my partner has just started her career job as a midwife last September, and she's worked a lot of weekends this year. I've got 3 kids, so it's been incredibly hard to micromanage time out on the bike. I've had to do a lot of turbo stuff at a much shorter amount of time around the kids, which has meant that the amount of kind of pace and endurance, if you will, and training going into these events have not been ideal. However, I've had to use certain training events as ways to build up kind of fitness. Now, Ironman UK was definitely one of these races. The goal is and was to get around the course. It was not necessarily to kind of break any records in the course. And for me, I definitely used that race. So again, the swim was a 7 out of 10. I came out in roughly the same time. I think I was like a minute or two quicker. No kind of records broken. And on the bike, I purposely made sure my heart rate stayed within a zone 2. Now, for me, that was a kind of 145 beats a minute. And it kind of made the entire bike ride a strength workout, so a muscular strength endurance workout. Now, for those who know about what I'm talking about, will understand what I'm saying. So it's one of those things that where you purposely keep your heart rate low, but your wattage will stay high. And so typically I was pushing out a zone 3 power output whilst maintaining a zone 2 heart rate. Now, if you have ever done kind of any turbo work or any work on Swift, you'll know that your kind of cadence is around kind of 60 to kind of 75 RPM, and then you're pushing out that higher kind of zone 3, maybe higher power output. And what it does is it burns the muscles out quicker, and makes it very taxing for your muscles, but it kind of allows you to drop that heart rate down to something that's much more manageable. For me, I was able to drop that down, keep that down around the 145 mark, and build that zone 2 endurance up for the entire race. However, it made my bike ride much longer. I ended up averaging, I think it was around 23 kilometers an hour because of the wind, and it brought my bike ride to about 7 to 7.5 hours in total, whereas I was riding at 70.3s both at Staffordshire, and I snuck the Cardiff Triathlon in there as well, where I averaged kind of sub 3 hour bike rides for those, and although double the distance, it's quite a bit of extra time as well. Like, seeing as in Cardiff, I averaged 33.8 kilometers, and I think it was 31.7 for Staffordshire. So then go into Bolton averaging 23, can kind of show you roughly where the difference was in the wind and why that kind of failure rate was at 35%, which was massive. And it kind of massively showed on the run with the lack of people on that course. For the run, again, it was something where I kind of introduced the introduction of carrying a flag. So the Rock to Recovery flag, I've been wearing the weighted vest for all these events so far. And I thought, based on people's perceptions and the feedback I had for Staffordshire, people didn't really understand why I was wearing this weighted vest, and I kind of had a mixed reception, if you will, and it was really interesting. I had a few comments, I had a few messages, I had a few dirty looks and so on, and I think that by no means am I trying to be better than anybody. Am I trying to overshadow anyone else's achievements? This is simply me versus me. I'm all I want to try and do is better myself. Long term, I want to do some multi-day ultramarathon events. I want to do some extreme triathlons in the future, and it kind of gave me the idea of kind of doing these events, although at a much slower pace, with a weighted vest, to see if I could in future kind of do load bearing events. In Staffordshire, I felt like a few people got it and was like, well done, great effort, could see that it is literally me versus me, just like your race is you versus you. Other people thought it was, I felt that people got offended basically because I was making a hard thing harder, and by doing so it kind of overshadowed their experiences and their achievements. Now, I'm not trying to do that. For those who know me, I don't necessarily have an ego at all. and I certainly wouldn't want to kind of take away from anybody and their achievement. You know, I think you're all doing amazing. I certainly am no rock star in regards to my sport performance. I'm not the fastest, I don't claim to be, although I'm trying my best as a dad, you know, and as a coach and as an athlete. Now in Bolton, when I carried that flag, it kind of gave people a reason why I was doing it, you know, and the reception was much more welcomed. And what was awesome about it as well, it kind of offered a lot more talk time, you know, especially on the run. People came up to me, they ran alongside me. They wanted to know what Rock to Recovery was, what they did, why I was doing it, what I was trying to achieve, and so on and so forth. And it just offered these amazing questions. And for me, it was about raising awareness for the charity and ultimately raising money for the charity. Every year I do something and I pick a charity and I try my best to raise as much money as I can for them. I want to be a good person and I want to kind of help those that need it. And although the races are in a way selfish, because I want to do these races and I want to improve myself and I want to improve my mindset by doing these races to see if I am tough enough or fit enough or whatever. I also want to use them as a kind of a slingshot to help charities and do good in another kind of, from another angle, if you will. For me, carrying that flag really helped raise that awareness. So when I went into Swansea, it kind of allowed me to do the same, and I kind of wore the vest again and I carried the flag again. And what was really cool about it was there was a lot of people that had seen me in Bolton that were racing Swansea as well, which was really awesome. That kind of dropped me messages kind of on Instagram and on YouTube as well, and kind of really like celebrated it. You know, it was really cool in that sense. You got an amazing Ironman community, an amazing triathlon community, and I think all of us are kind of in a similar boat, if you will. So it's amazing sharing stories, sharing experiences and so on. Some people saying I'll see you in kind of Ironman Wales, which is awesome, and all these things. So I hope that I see these people. I hope you guys come up to me and say hello, and so on. I hope by filming these events that you guys get to see yourself on some of the footage, and if you do, by all means let me know, and so let me know your experiences so I can celebrate you as well. And yeah, it's been a great kind of thing, kind of carrying that flag and wearing that weighted vest. Swansea was really interesting. The bike course was just as tough. The weather conditions, especially in the first couple of hours, if you've watched the video and if you know anybody that did Swansea, although it wasn't as full on with the wind, it was definitely full on with rain. Although it was still windy. Now that bike course was treacherous, to say the least. On the first big descent, I almost came off. One of my athletes came off. I was very lucky in the sense that I was able to pull my back wheel back in and kind of navigate myself through this central reservation and this first traffic cone. Because down the first descent, you're kind of coming down this big hill, and then you kind of turn this bend and you go straight up into another hill. Now, because the road was like a river, as you kind of come down, it's like a kind of a T-junction, if you will. There's an island in the middle to kind of help with that traffic, and then they kind of put cones out going back up the hill. Because there was live traffic on the other side. Now, luckily, there was no live traffic when I was coming down. Otherwise, that would have been an incredibly bad day, and this whole journey would have been game over. But luckily, as I was braking, and I was kind of similar to when you drive on ice and you're kind of just pushing it a little, I was kind of pulling my brakes, although not to kind of slam my brakes on. My back end was just kicking out, and it kicked out in a big way twice, causing me to really kind of brace and kind of really trying to drive my wheel back in and under me. And it kind of, there was a 2 foot gap between the island and this cone, and I managed to get through there after the second time, causing everyone, all of the supporters and everyone to kind of hold their heads, scream out loud, and then pat me on the back as I kind of went up and out the saddle, riding up the hill to try and gain momentum. Now, unfortunately, one of my clients wasn't as lucky, and he hit the deck and kind of cut all his arm, his shoulder, his hip, his leg, his bike. Luckily, he was wearing a helmet because it smashed his helmet and stuff. Came off pretty hard, pretty heavy. Took his glasses clean off his face, and everything. And luckily, he was slightly ahead of me because he's a brilliant swimmer. I was able to catch up with him, give him the talks that he needed as a person, and kind of spend a bit of time with him on the bike for like 10-15 minutes, where I was able to just kind of talk to him and give him the words of encouragement that he needed. And then he kind of had a brilliant day after that. He kind of got back into his mojo, if you will, on the bike, and then he had a brilliant run and did amazing overall, but it was definitely a learning curve for him, and definitely an experience that will make him better and stronger as an Ironman athlete. The bike itself, after the first hour, because coming up to the turnaround point, we had hailstone. It was like a kind of a white mist. The rain was kind of like when you're driving down a motorway and you've got your window wipers on full blast. You're seeing every other second. It was kind of like that within the first hour on the bike, which was insane. So for me, after almost coming off, it kind of really put in my mind, right, kill your speed, sit up as tall as you can when you're going down the hills. Try and have like this invisible parachute behind you to slow it right down, because for those who know Swansea, there's some big hills and there's some big climbs, but there's also some big descents, and then some lovely fast sections on the course. But it means that normally on the downhill section on a dry day like last year, you can have some, if you're confident going down hills, you can have a real good time and really catch up that pace and kind of help yourself into the next climb. Now, for me, and for everyone else on the course, it kind of really killed that. So it made you work 10 times harder. But overall, I had a really good bike time. I kind of averaged, I completed it in, I think, 3:05, which was really good. It kind of got sunny after the first hour, and then the road started drying up, and then because of the top sections of the Gower is really open, there was still a bit of headwinds, but as long as you had the power output, you were able to push through and really get aero and just kind of really gun it, which for me, I was able to catch up a lot of speed going through there, put out a lot of power. I think one section I was averaging kind of 44.8 kilometers an hour, and really kind of gunning it, which made like anyone on the bike makes you feel amazing. And I was able to catch up a lot of time that I kind of lost early on in the bike section because I kind of wanted under 3 hours. I ended up with 3:05, but was happy with that. And then my goal for the run was very different. So instead of running that kind of 3 minutes and then walking to 2 to kind of control my heart rate or control the fatigue like in Bolton, I wanted to use Swansea as a springboard to help with my fatigue and to help with building up for Ireland in a few weeks. Now, although it wasn't fast, I told myself that like literally you're going to run the whole race, but run it at a zone 2. So for me, that zone 2 pace was 6:24. It's about 6.5 minutes for me as an individual. I ended up running the whole race averaging 6:24, which was pretty good. The only times I walked was at each feed station, where I was drinking water, because by then it was becoming much sunnier. Coming out of transition, I was feeling pretty good. Happy with my time, happy with everything, how it was going. The swim was really good. I kind of did it, my fastest swim this year at kind of 35 minutes. And then the bike, bringing the bike pace back up, made me feel good. So I was running out at kind of 5:30 minute kilometers up until the first aid station, where I had absolute mega cramp in my right leg. My whole right leg just decided to go. So I kindly put it up on the wall next to the beach and stretched that out to which is where like kind of a load of my clients ran past me, which was, as anything, it's always gutting, but it's also good to see that they're doing so well, like, you know, but also funny. That kind of put things into perspective and was just like, right, okay, it's not going to be one of those days, drop it back down into that kind of zone 2, because I was planning on running kind of in the 5s initially, but it made me change my kind of plans and run it kind of that zone 2 pace, but just run the whole race, to which I did. It was incredibly tough in the sense of going out to the turnout point. So like Ironman Swansea is kind of like a bay run. So you kind of run in this kind of banana shape, if you will, and then turning around, coming back, but then you go out on the main road. Now, heading out, you were against a headwind all the way, which was hard enough for most people, but it's incredibly hard when you're holding a giant flag. So by the end of the day, my body, like Swansea, I felt it the most in regards to fatigue on my body, on my upper body, on my arms, my biceps. I felt it more than I did in Ironman Bolton or Ironman Staffordshire or even Cardiff. And by the end of the race, I just needed to take that vest off. I needed to put my arms down because my biceps were screaming. My shoulders were killing at the front, because what happens when you're running is the pole of the flag taps your shoulder every single time, every time you kind of land in the run. And over time, you end up kind of with bruises. So because the bike was so difficult in regards to its conditions and the climbs itself, you used a lot more energy and you were a lot more fatigued in the upper body. And then going into that run, because you were heading like half of the loop out, it was a 2-loop course. Half of that run, basically, you were running into a big headwind. Every 5 minutes, I was swapping arms just to kind of keep the fatigue balanced, if you will, keep my body balanced. But yeah, it was a real tough course. I ended up, I think, doing around 6.5. Although I'm not 100% on my times, I think it was around 6.5. For those who want to double check, by all means, add me on Strava. I'll accept your friend requests and so on. If you're into the data, by all means, have a look and let me know what your thoughts are, which I'm sure people always like to look. But yeah, for me, it was by far the toughest course, but also a brilliant course. Now, one thing I'm really looking forward to now is the build-up in regards to my training over the next few weeks, building up towards Ireland, and where I've kind of calculated my training is, if I show you a picture on my phone, this is from my Garmin. Now, for those who can see, the grey here is my chronic load. The orange is the orange is my chronic load even. The grey big section is my optimal range, so where my chronic load stays within. So it's kind of like this little shelf, if you will. I've got my chronic load fitted in between there, so as long as it stays within there, I stay injury free. I don't end up hurting myself or damaging my heart or my body, and everything is manageable. Now the light grey is my acute load, so my sessions. Now what you'll find is this one here is Bolton. You can't see Staffordshire anymore. And then what you find is after Bolton, I dropped it down dramatically in regards to my training intensity, because I knew that I was going to slingshot myself up. For those who can see it better there, slingshot myself up towards Swansea. Now what you'll notice is on the orange, it's quite consistent in regards to my training load and my intensities. And it's kind of like a small jump up, but it stays within the optimal range. Now, the reason why I'm sharing this is because when I first started this challenge, like a lot of other challenges that I've done in the past, I tend to have a lot of criticism. I tend to get told, oh, it's all right, you know, you're relatively young, I'm 35. I get told that I'm going to ruin my knees, I'm going to ruin my body, I'm going to injure myself, what I'm doing is stupid. What I'm doing is a lot of ego-based driven kind of exercise, if you will. I've had some people message me privately or tell me to my face that wearing the weighted vest and looking to make it harder is my ego. And not me wanting just to see where, like a self-exploration journey, if you will. For me, this is all about self-development, development in regards to mental development. For me, the reason why I like to do Ironman, I feel that I race better at a 70.3 distance. However, I like the longer distances because I like the journey of finding myself, understanding how far I can go, going through that journey in regards to talking to yourself and going, I want to quit, and then you're kind of going back and forth with yourself and back and forth with your mind, saying, I can't do it, no, keep going, da 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 da, you know. I enjoy that process. It kind of always makes me feel incredibly humble. When I do these type of things, it makes me realize how incredibly lucky I am to be able to do these things, how many amazing people I have around me, supporting me, donating to the causes that I'm fundraising for, the kindness, the support, there's so many different things that allow me to really connect with those around me. I do these races for those reasons. Yes, I want to know how far I can take myself. Yes, I want to go down, dig a little deeper each and every time. But it's incredibly interesting when a lot of people who don't do those things, they don't understand, they don't get it, they haven't got the wealth of experience, or they don't understand the human body. But it shows here in literally black and white that my orange is nowhere near the top of my optimal range. It shows that I'm, if anything, down the bottom of my optimal range, well away from harm's way. And as I train, as I improve, as I look to build my body in my training and add extra loads on to me over time, my body gets stronger and it adapts, which is the beautiful thing about the human body. And for those who do Ironman on a regular basis will also know that, like, you just get used to doing what you do. You know, your body gets used to doing what it does, and it evolves and it adapts, and it's your mind. As long as you invest in self-development and you look to push a little bit more and stretch that comfort zone a little bit more, you'll keep growing, you know. And for me, it's about taking something in a sporting context and then allowing it to feed into my everyday life, into my business, into my YouTube channel, into any social media work that I want to do, into my belief as a partner, as a dad, you know, giving my kids this belief that at their age, I never had. You know, I didn't have that until I started working on myself when I was in my early 20s. I want to be able to give this, try and bottle it, if you will, and allow those around me to believe in themselves and achieve, because my first ever Ironman was also my first ever triathlon, was also my first ever like open water swim event, my first ever cycling event, and my first ever marathon. So, and the way I see myself is I'm just a regular guy, you know, that is willing to try, is willing to put himself out there. So my point that I'm trying to make is that anytime you're going to push yourself or put yourself out your comfort zone, you're going to have a million people tell you that you're potentially stupid, that what you're doing is dangerous, you're going to injure yourself, you're going to hurt yourself. And as long as you're listening to sound science and you can see the dream and the goal, you can achieve anything that you want. And some people aren't going to see it because they can't. It's your dream, it's in your head, and only you can have that vision. Other people are going to come along for the ride, those who believe in your story, in your vision, and your goal. But some people, and what's hard about it is some of these people are going to be the closest ones to you, because their perception of yourself, they can't see the new version of you until it's done, until it's kind of cemented by a few years, you know. Then their perception will change, and then they'll go, oh yeah, my friend, he does Ironman, he'll nail this, you know. The biggest thing that you can do is never quit on your dreams. Sometimes people aren't going to be able to see them, unfortunately, but follow your dreams, follow your goals, and be relentless in chasing them, you know. For me, the whole reason I want to create this channel is I just think I want to support those who have big goals, have big dreams. But two, I also think that it'd be pretty amazing when I'm an old man and I'm showing my grandkids or great-grandkids the cool things that I did when I was younger. You know, to remind myself who I am, and to have this kind of video channel that will have all these epic adventures on that kind of can inspire other people to do the same, that can reach out a wider community, that we can have conversations and build a community that believes in itself, and that then in turn helps others to believe, you know. So for me, it's that journey where I have a million goals that I want to achieve. I have a bucket list that is absolutely huge, and some of them will never ever happen. You know, I'm fully aware of that, but it won't be because of a lack of kind of a lack of imagination. What it will be is a lack of funds. You know, I think if I was to ever win the lottery, I'd be able to do a ton of things, so many things, because I would love to go up mountains on expeditions. I would love to cycle across countries, run across countries, swim around the world, you name it. I kind of want to do it, and I have lists of races that are around the world that cost potential thousands of pounds per entry, that I would love to do. I've always said that Ironman, wouldn't it be an amazing way to see the world by doing Ironman all around the world, like, you know, and kind of cycling around these countries, exploring within each race, taking in the beauty around you whilst on your bike or whilst on a run, you know, going from country to country. Now, I know some of that's not going to happen, but I also know that, like, what is life if you can't dream, you know, and work towards those goals? And if I get a few countries underneath my belt, then albeit, and there'll be videos to come for that, you know. But what I'm trying to say is, when you have your dreams and you want to do these races and you want to overcome these things, sometimes when people are telling you that you can't do it, don't worry. Don't even kind of acknowledge those moments, because it's not them telling you out of spite. It's just the fact that for whatever reason that they can't see themselves doing it. So then they compare themselves to you, and then they don't see you being able to do that. You know, I've had tons of people tell me that I can't do things in life, and I've had to unfortunately show them that they're wrong, you know. And some of them are still around, some of them unfortunately aren't around anymore, but it also has allowed me to grow as a person and become the person that I want to be. Because when it's all said and done, we've got to ask ourselves, have we become the person that we wanted to be, or do we have any regrets? Do we have any missed opportunities? And for me, I certainly don't want to be that person that has any sort of missed opportunity, you know. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have a ton of questions, by all means, ask them in the comment section. I will answer each and every one of you. I just wanted to set this video up as a kind of halfway in kind of video. If you want to know more about my training, the type of things that I'm doing, I'm going to be setting up an Instagram. On my Instagram there will be a little subscription based page now, that every day I will be uploading workouts each day that I'll be doing, that you in turn can do. So if you want to check that out, by all means head over to my Instagram. I am Chris_Hill, or ask away in here. By all means, if you want to, I can do a kind of a day in the life video or week in the life video of me, and I will always be honest, I will always be open, and I will always give you my version of the truth, based on what I'm doing and what I'm trying to achieve, okay? If you have any questions that I can help you with your training, if you're going to be at any of these events, if you go into Ireland, whether you're doing the 70.3 or the full, whether you're doing Ironman Wales, or if you're doing Weymouth later in September, let me know your name so I can add you to the tracking app when it comes about, so I can support you and so on and so forth, right? Otherwise, if you can, hit that subscribe button. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I know it's been a little long-winded. You'll soon learn that I can talk for literally hours, but I hope it's been useful anyway. Take care, and I shall see you soon.